Hello, good morning. Welcome all of you on this nice Friday morning. For some of us afternoons, for some of us evenings, I don't know. I will read a little bit about ruangrupa in this lecture of the Academy of Arts, and then I will hand over to our host, so bear with me. Every year, the Society of the Arts of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences invites a guest to reflect on the state of the arts. As chair and on behalf of the Academy of Arts, I'm very proud and happy to welcome for this year's event, ruangrupa, an artist collective from Jakarta. They curated the previous edition of Documenta, of Sonsbeek, in 2016, as many of you probably know, and are currently curator of Documenta 15 that takes place this year in Kassel. Founded by artist and teacher Arnold Bode in 1955, Documenta is considered as one of the most prestigious global art events. It was set up as a display, a promotion, if you like, of modern art, celebrating artistic freedom, individuality, and universality. I have seen the Documenta since 1982. Each Documenta felt like a fantastic ride and learning curve to understand my own perspective on and in dialogue with a myriad of perspectives offered by so many other artists. While in 1982, the art world was still predominantly oriented to the Western Hemisphere, geopolitical developments, of course, did impact Documenta. In 1997, Documenta team, Gertrude Flente, has paved the way for a shift of perspective. And 5 years later, OP Ambassador enlarged the scope. Documenta 11 questioned the hierarchy of the Western art scene and the legitimacy of exoticizing the other and confronted this with conflicting artistic activities. And now in 2022, the Indonesian collective ruangrupa is building the foundation of Documenta 15 on the core values and ideas of Lumbung as an artistic and economic model that is rooted in principles of collectivity, sharing, and equal allocation. They will, of course, talk about this, I expect. I first met with ruangrupa in Sao Paulo for the first time at the 31st biennial, entitled How to Things That Don't Exist. A year after, we were invited to take part in the Jakarta biennial. Here we closely experienced their way of working. Large-scale events such as Documentas and biennials are also experiments, and ruangrupa is not bound nor hindered by fixed conceptual ideas. They are more interested in means of analysis and less into means of production. They take risks, thus creating a playful ground of unexpected encounters between disciplines, backgrounds, and means, organic, open, improvised, and experimental, as it is, they claim, the only way in which art can possess a critical sensibility, which they consider the most important position of art in society. Ruangrupa's core values could not have arrived at a timelier moment than today. Inequality, climate crisis, the pandemic, etc., are all clear and interrelated signals. Echoing the original intent of Documenta as an event launched to heal Europe after the Second World War, it is now time to heal the world, but perhaps first our own minds and spirits. We cannot do without collaboration, communality, friendship, and solidarity, and art, I would say. A social, spatial, political, and personal practice rooted in Asian culture, supported and anchored in Kassel, with friendship and solidarity as a basis, this is a strong mattress to dance on. Before we move on to share today's space with Ajung Nurul Aini, Belina Erbi, Daniela Praptono, and Farid Rakoun, who represent ruangrupa, today, I need to inform you that this conversation as Zoom meeting will be recorded. Questions can be asked in the chat, and this is for an oversight because you are with many, so it's good if I will do the chat. So I will try to do this as good as possible. Maybe in the end we move to raising hands, but initially please do that in the chat. It's appreciated if you show yourself, but also okay if you don't want this. After this conversation, the recording will be available online. Gertrude Flente will be our host. She is currently working as a member of the artistic team for Documenta 15. Throughout her working life, she has been involved in developing, facilitating, and supporting alternative art institutions, cultural networks, and artist collectives, with an aim to rethink artistic practice and economy towards more collaborative and just approaches. She has coordinated several networks for artists and intellectuals in Europe, for instance, at the Felix Meritis Foundation and at the RAIN Network for Artist Initiatives in Africa, Asia, Latin America at the Rijksacademie. At Doen Foundation, she developed the Arts Collaboratory Network, among others, to decolonize and debureaucratize funding practice and to help build the cultural sector in West and East Africa. Gertrude is practicing a common-based approach to life and work also. In her free time, she's involved in co-housing projects and develops inclusive school environments. Gertrude, with pleasure, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Liesbeth, also for the very long introduction of myself. I think I'm here mainly also as a friend of ruangrupa, with whom I've been working for 20 years, starting with the RAIN network that you just mentioned. And I'm also saying this because indeed, as you also pointed out, Liesbeth, friendship is an important basis for the work of ruangrupa. And currently we are working together in the artistic team of Documenta, so even in closer proximity than ever, we are collaborating over Zoom, so unfortunately not so much live. And when ruangrupa was invited for this talk, of course, I think they immediately thought this is not a talk, this is a conversation. And in conversation, they always invited friends along, so that's how they invited me. I'm saying this because also conversation, I think, is kind of a very fundamental way of the so-called curatorial practice of ruangrupa. Conversation as a way to go away from hierarchies and didactics and to keep things open and flowing, and also with time. So yeah, I'm very happy to be part of this conversation, and I hope it will be as open and flowing as we usually have it. So I think today we will start with just a small introduction of all the members of ruangrupa. Then we will see a short film, and then we will dive into further talking. So maybe, as we always do, I give the microphone to Ajeng, and you, Ajeng, give the microphone to the next one.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you, Liesbeth and Gertrude, for the introduction. Yes, my name is Ajeng. I'm speaking from Jakarta, Indonesia right now, and I'm part of ruangrupa since in 2011 until now. So looking forward to the conversation, and I pass the mic to Daniela.
Hello, thank you, Liesbeth, Gertrude, and thank you for all in this room who coming here. I'm Daniela. All of friends call me Kunil, so yeah, you can call me Kunil too. I am in now at my home in Tangerang, near to Jakarta in Indonesia. I joined in ruangrupa since 2001 until now, so it's like a home. Thank you. I will pass the mic to Erbi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I am Belina Erbi. Most people call me Erbi, and now currently based in Jakarta. My first met in ruangrupa is 2012 as a participant in the critical arts writers workshop, and then also in Jakarta Biennale 2015, and working and then hang out with them in 2016 until now. And now also currently assist them as in Documenta 15. So I'm pass the mic to Farid.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. And it's quite an honor to be here right now with friends as well, like Gertrude and Liesbeth, who we met, like as Liesbeth said, back almost 10 years ago now, 8 years ago. And I'm also from, I'm currently not in Jakarta. I'm in West Java, Depok, next to Jakarta, but I usually live in Jakarta, and hopefully see you all in person, not in Zoom again, at least in the summer of this year in Kassel. Thank you very, very much again. And then back at you, Gertrude.
Thank you. So we start with a small film that is an introduction to Ruangrupa and above all Good School, where Ruangrupa is part of and based in Jakarta at the moment. And it's a film made about 2 years ago by Dreisat Kulturzeit, filmed by Robert Akkerman. Yeah, let's go there and from there take the conversation.
Die indonesische Hauptstadt Jakarta, Megacity und Moloch mit rund 10 Millionen Einwohnern. Das Stadtbild geprägt von Verkehrschaos und Überflutungen. Ausgerechnet von hier soll sie kommen, die nächste Documenta, eine der weltweit wichtigsten Ausstellungen für zeitgenössische Kunst. Genauer gesagt aus dem Süden der Stadt. Hier liegt das Hauptquartier von Ruangrupa. Ein Container, in dem 10 Künstler gemeinschaftlich planen. Erstaunlich entspannt. Zumindest äußerlich.
Es mag für manche Menschen verwirrend sein, die das so nicht kennen, aber das ist typisch für unsere Arbeitsweise. So machen wir das schon viele Jahre. Wir haben etwas zu essen hier und unterhalten uns. Jeder wirft Ideen in den Raum. Alles läuft sehr organisch ab.
Zusammen mit anderen Kollektiven betreiben Ruangrupa Good School, die gute Schule. Ein Kulturzentrum mit Ateliers, Galerien, Konzerthalle und Lernräumen. Reza Alficina hat Good School mitgegründet als Lern- und Kreativort für Gleichgesinnte.
Am Anfang waren wir ein reines Künstlerkollektiv. Wir haben uns vor allem auf unsere eigenen Projekte konzentriert. Aber dann haben wir gemerkt, dass andere Leute aus dem Kulturbereich ähnliche Bedürfnisse haben wie wir. So haben wir dann ein multidisziplinäres Umfeld geschaffen, in dem wir uns alle gegenseitig unterstützen.
Reason to build a space and become a collective, but also we could find others also have this kind of importances.
Teamwork statt Kuratorenkult. Mit dieser Idee haben sich Ruangrupa für die Documenta beworben. Lumbung, Reisscheune, nennen sie ihr Konzept. Sie wollen Ressourcen kollektiv nutzen, ökologisch wie sozial. In Kebayoran wird klar, was sie meinen. Befreundete Sprayer haben das Viertel umgestaltet, in Absprache mit den Bewohnern.
Wir haben hier schon 3 Projekte gemacht. Einmal bei uns am Haus, einmal Richtung Innenstadt und einmal hier.
Einige der Sprayer haben schon auf der Art Basel in Hongkong gemalt. Aber Graffiti? Kann man damit Kunstkenner begeistern? Darum geht es nicht, sagt Ruangrupa-Mitglied Ayung Nurul Aini. Wenn wir eine Ausstellung in einer Galerie machen, ist das in Ordnung. Aber es schafft auch eine gewisse Distanz. Deswegen ist es gut, wenn ein Künstler oder ein Kollektiv verschiedene Medien nutzt und in die Communities geht, wie in diesem Projekt. Eine gewisse Lässigkeit gehört hier dazu, vor allem wenn man Leute gewinnen will, die sonst mit Kunst nur wenig am Hut haben. Die Idee für ihre Aktion haben die Sprayer von Ruangrupa übernommen.
Ruangrupa hat uns inspiriert, mit der Nachbarschaft zu arbeiten, eine Öffentlichkeit überhaupt erst entstehen zu lassen. Wir haben gelernt, wie man Ausstellungen macht, alternative Räume schafft. Das ist eine gute Sache.
Wer ruangrupa verstehen will, muss Jakarta kennen. Ständiger Stau, Lärm, Luftverschmutzung. Wer hier wohnt, muss improvisieren können, sogar auf höchster Ebene. Weil die Stadt im Meer versinkt, plant die indonesische Regierung einen Umzug nach Borneo. Ruangrupa vertreten auch die Sicht des globalen Südens. Kassel ist weit weg. Für Farid Rakun ist genau das eine Chance.
Die Last der Documenta wird uns jetzt überall hin verfolgen. Aber hier interessiert sich niemand dafür. Das ist toll, weil wir nicht in die Falle tappen, uns selbst zu wichtig zu nehmen.
Im niederländischen Arnhem, in Brisbane und Sao Paulo haben ruangrupa schon bewiesen, dass sie auf internationalem Level kuratieren können. Sie luden Bäcker ein, um im Park Brot zu backen, bespielten den öffentlichen Raum mit Installationen und veranstalteten Workshops in einem eigens eröffneten Ruru-Haus. Einen solchen Ort soll es auch in Kassel geben. Ist das groß genug gedacht?
Hoffentlich frisst uns die Documenta nicht auf. Wir sollten uns von ihr nicht überwältigen lassen. Wir werden unser Bestes geben. Es geht uns um gute Kommunikation auf Augenhöhe mit dem Rest der Welt und den Documenta-Machern.
Gleichberechtigt reden und teilhaben, das ist neu für die Documenta. Welchen Spirit ruangrupa leben, kann man in Jakarta sehen. Bei der Eröffnung einer neuen Galerie legt Reza Afisina auf, als Gast bei Freunden. Er erklärt den Hang zur Gemeinschaft in der Kunstszene.
Wir haben eine Art Trauma, weil wir während des New Order-Regimes nicht draußen miteinander abhängen konnten. Wir mussten in die Kunsthochschule und waren dort zusammen und haben dort gemeinsame Projekte entwickelt, zum Beispiel Festivals. Diese Kultur ist tief in uns verwurzelt.
Heute spielt die Band Senyawa in Gotskol, der Ruangrupa-Zentrale. Fast wöchentlich kommen neue Künstler. Die nächste Documenta, ein Festival der Vielfalt, bei dem alle mitreden? Für manche mag das naiv klingen. Dabei könnten wir jetzt schon anfangen, von dem Künstlerkollektiv aus Jakarta zu lernen. Entspannt bleiben und offen für Ideen.
Thank you very much. I hope people have been able to understand the German. I think we kind of assume in the Netherlands that people still understand it, but at least there were a lot of images that say a lot, I think. So I think the idea today is to speak a lot about Lumbung, which is the concept and practice for Documenta 15. But before diving into that, I wanted to deepen a bit on some aspects that came also out in this film and which are very crucial to ruangrupa practice. And the first one is nongkrong that Reza Afisina was also talking about in the film. And I see Farid already getting like nongkrong is becoming nearly a cliche for ruangrupa, I think, to talk about it. But still very important, and also to deepen a bit on it, because nongkrong superficially could be called hanging out, no? And this has been what ruangrupa has been doing from the beginning. But it's not just hanging out. As we said, like friendship is an important part of ruangrupa, and nongkrong is a way to build friendship. But I think it's much more like from how I've seen ruangrupa over the years, it's much more, it's even maybe a political act, as Reza was saying, after the fall of Suharto regime. It's also an organizational practice, the way ruangrupa kind of makes decisions, develops new projects, and it's also an artistic process. So I thought we have the privilege today of having different generations of ruangrupa members. Daniela is one of the oldest, and Erbi is one of the youngest ruangrupa members, and then Farid and Ajeng in between. So maybe you could all say something about what nongkrong means to you, also in relation to the time you came to ruangrupa and how that maybe has shifted. I don't know, maybe Kunil wants to start.
Yeah, well, like Gertrude said, and we all know about nongkrong. It's actually in Indonesia, there's a culture from long time ago that people gather to share some foods and some stories. So also when we were in a college, it's actually for some of us like Reza, Indra, Ade, me, we came from in the same college from long time ago. So it's really glad that we still can gather until now. And in this nongkrong situation, we talk about everything, not only work, but it's like, for example, sharing ideas and sharing food, story about family and things like that. It's more personal touch that we can after that find something or the way out to work together. Yeah, it's actually start from the nongkrong things. Yeah, maybe Ajeng and Erbi and Farid can say something about this nongkrong.
Yeah, maybe I can add a bit from my side. I think, yeah, from myself until I finally met ruangrupa, actually start from nongkrong, but maybe different environment because yeah, I study in this institute in Jakarta, but not in the art university. But we also have this kind of like nongkrong in our college, for example. And then that's how I heard about ruangrupa, the exhibition, the project, or any other activities that ruangrupas did during that time, or even just kind of like the karaoke party or other event as well. So that's how I heard about ruangrupa and also about other how to say it, like communities event as well. And then I start to talks with the other. I start to come to the event and then meet the others. And then there's how we meet, and then I start to join or get involved in some project of ruangrupa. And so basically, yeah, it's really based on how the nongkrong or how yeah, it's very in our kind of like daily activities as well. So yeah, that's from me.
Maybe if I may just add a little bit, I knew ruangrupa, I think when I was still a student around 2003, 2004. And then ruangrupa was not ruangrupa as it is right now, of course. And then as a student, I just like, I was interested in them because I came from architecture background. I was still an architecture student at that moment. And then it was because no one was talking about the urban and all those kind of stuff that I was interested in the way they did, especially not in architecture circles or architecture school, let alone, let's forget about them. But that's why. And then it means also like I waste a lot of time there. Like hanging out with them was not, looking back, it could be considered as also from the comments made by my architecture student friends at that moment, just like there's no use basically in their eyes. Like why would I spend so much time with ruangrupa and this artist, let's say, because like it's not considered, maybe they still not consider it as like a good career move or something like that, but I wasn't thinking about that. And then I think, yeah, we never knew that we would be like this talking to you about nongkrong and like as if we're campaigning it, but adding to what Reza said in the video, maybe it also a generational thing. My father, for example, growing up, I've always been told by my father not to do nongkrong in whatever format that it would bring, you know, because it has in a neoliberal sense, because like the new order was very, very neoliberal, no, and my father was a product of it. And then in that sense, it's a waste of time, as if like if someone nongkrong with someone else, and then the term itself is just like wasting time and doing nothing good with your life, let's say. So it's kind of funny that it brought us in almost full circle right now, that it could be brought in as something at least not only negative. There's something positive as well about it in reaction to what's considered to be good in my father's generation, let's say. I'll stop there for now. Erbi, because you're the youngest, maybe you're like would be very critical towards nongkrong as well.
When the Rurus older generation against new order, and then built a galleries. At that time, I was elementary school, so the gap age between me and the older generation, it's like my uncle, my auntie. So, but I feel until now my interaction with them, it's really close, like friends, specifically like best friend. It's not a gap. It's not really have a gap between me and then the older generation. But the difference is what the enemies in the older generation. It's very different with the young generation. They want to against the new order at that time, and then they built something new. But now in young generation, not just in Ruru, we are very comfort with the ambience. We enjoy what the old generation already built. So, but the nongkrong itself, until now, I feel it's same. I think what the older generation had, because in ruangrupa or in good school, the place where ruangrupa based now, they 50% or 60% is about having fun. It's not, yes, sometimes we're working about programming some art events, but like Farid mentioned, it's some things like wasting time, but it's not really, because we are nongkrong, and then we catch up with each others, and then the idea it's coming up organically. So sometimes the event program is coming up from our wasting time nongkrong from morning to morning, but the spirit of nongkrong, it's, I think, feel very very similar with 2001 when Ruru and then Daniela, Ade, and Ameng also feel the nongkrong experience.
Great, thank you. I think another thing that came out of the film, you see a lot good school in the film. And I also think from what Ajeng was saying in the film and others, it becomes clear that in ruangrupa's practice, the artistic, the social, the educational, economy, and thinking about sustainability are very intertwined. No, this is something I find very unique and also hard to explain sometimes here in the Netherlands, like the fluidity and the organically intertwining of all those aspects. So maybe you could talk a little bit more how Good School works and how this intertwining of these elements is also as a basis then later for Lumbung, of course. I don't know who wants to start, maybe Ajeng, Farid.
Yeah, maybe I can start and the rest can add. Good School is not, I mean, when we finally decide to make our new platform and base or the core is more into pedagogy or kind of like this alternative education and focus on our study collective. It's not just kind of the conversation that only happen 1 year or 2 years. So it's also from our journey, not just ruangrupa, but also with our collaborator, our ecosystem, and our other collectives in Jakarta, to be exact. So I remember with this issue about if the issue about sustainability actually already came since like 2010 in ruangrupa. I mean, when we realized that we want to try kind of way on how to sustain with ourselves and really not depending with other, let's say like sponsor or funders, even from the government, because it's very difficult to sometimes to access it. And then in 2000 and I think around 12 or 13, then the first experiment actually we invite 2 others collective to join and to make this kind of like how to say service business, or kind of this like commercial things. So we try to see what ours can offer to people out there, but more into kind of this in a business way. And then we start to thinking we can share our profit and to support our like operational or our daily maintenance and so on. And then it started in 2012, but it's also very difficult because out there is so many already kind of like these services that also very professional, for example, because from all of us, we don't have any background of business as well. So it's not really works for us actually. But we still do it. Like we learn many things from that. And then what we offer is actually kind of this collaboration with, let's say, our client. So not just they order something to us, and then we just work for them. But we share the idea, we share our thought, we share our concept to them, and they also need to, they also, mostly they're very open with us. And then in 2016, then we decide to move to this 3,000 or 6,000 square meter this warehouse in kind of like a very not very central, but it's good area in Jakarta. And then together with other collective, we decide to move there and to build this new ecosystem for us. And then let's start the learning start also there. I mean the new experiment also start in there in Gudang Serena ecosystem before we just we have our small mostly in small house, for example, and then now we move to a space that's very big, and it's very challenge for us to maintain and also organize this huge space and many people. Maybe before only 100, and now we need to take care around 10,000 people for some event, for example, and that's very a good learning actually. And then in 2018, after 2 years, then we have an opportunity to move, and that's how we decide maybe, or at least like, let's if we see what we were doing so far in our journey, we already kind of like working with each other in a long time. So how to share this, or how to also always have something new with, or sharing with the other people with many backgrounds, many age or many generation as well. So that's why we make this good school. So yeah, maybe the rest can add.
Yeah, in good school, we're wondering if this is like a big living room that knowledge distribution can happen here. And so, like Erbi said and Ajeng said, whenever we gather with the other collective, and then in good school itself, there's a art collective compound, like a small division to make for the activation and then workshop and something like that, and also like about the sustainability that we can now that we can thinking how to sustain together in good school.
Maybe just to add a little bit with what Ajeng said about Gudang Sarana ecosystem and collective of collectives, that was the moment when we realized and we nicked the name, also like learning from Arts Collaboratory actually, the Lumbung, for example, or collective of collectives, and understanding ourselves as a bank of resources that we can share further. I think what Ajeng said as well, like what Ajeng said, good school was a result because it started in the end of 2018. As it was a result of a long-term conversations between us, Serum and Grafis Ruhara, on how to actually see ourselves, at least for ruangrupa at that moment. We were almost 20-year-old, and then we should not operate the way we used to operate. We should be more giving to others. And then in that way, the format of knowledge production and dissemination platform makes sense. That's why Good School became an informal educational platform. But during that time, we were also, from ruangrupa, we were also preparing ruangrupa as a name, as a banner, as a brand, to be much more invisible. But then the offer from Documenta came. Then it was impossible for us to come with like the name of Good School, because no one knew at that moment what Good School was, you know, even around around in Jakarta and Indonesia itself, Good School was new. To bring it to another context will be challenging. So ruangrupa was still useful, we found, and then we realized as well, learning from Soundsback actually, if we want to do something like Documenta, we should not be extracted anymore. We should invite them back, whether they would be interested to be part of our journey anyway, that we are already embarking upon. So Lumbung came about that way, and then keep on extending the invitations. First to Gertrude, Lara, Andrea, Isa, and Fred as artistic team, and then to Lumbung members, to Lumbung artists, etc., etc. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, before we dive deeper, there are some people already having questions, I think, about Nongkrong, Liesbeth and Wapke, as far as I see.
Shall I read it, the question?
Yes.
Yeah? Or Wapke, you want to read it yourself? No? Okay, Wapke asked the question. I think the hanging out with good food and good coffee is more radical than it sounds when I listen to just the word Nongkrong. It's another idea about production and the space in which culture production can happen. Can you mention some critical ideas that pop up in the Nongkrong, a moment of aha, and how you feed these ideas to infrastructures like, for example, the Ruru House and Good School?
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the question. Anyone wants to take it?
Is it mean like aha, something like that, right?
Aha.
Aha. Oh, Farid, go on.
Maybe one thing I want to start with, it's like we didn't start with a radical position, we have to say. Maybe we're against something, you know, or it was a reaction moment from our own context, but we never thought, up until now, maybe sometimes we don't think what we're doing is radical. Because we've been doing it for 20 years. Maybe when we were young, we were kind of like we want to say that what we're doing is radical, but not through Nongkrong at that moment, but through other things. What we can say though, that's why it's kind of like we learned a lot also from like the past few years when we're forced to sharpen our method, like sharpen the way we talk about our methods, you know. And then you were kind of like also pointing at the right direction, like Ruru House, for example, or Good School. Ruru House happened as an extension of the sensibilities and as a testing bed as well from Good School. Like Good School, we knew because this is our own context, what kind of space we want to bring, what kind of sensibilities we want to exercise. But then Ruru House is like an extension of it, whether it works on another level. Arnhem turned out to be like very useful experiment in that way. Then we continue to Kassel as well. We have Ruru House as well in Kassel right now. It is not a space that we have programs. I think like I think Reinhard, who runs Ruru House in Arnhem, is with us as well right now in this forum. So he might be able to share something further. But it's not a programmed space per se, let's say, but it is a space for us to absorb ideas, not only from ourselves, but also from others. And it is kind of like what I think Kunil mentioned, living room, because we started that way as well. A lot of collectives in Indonesia started by renting a house, turning it into something public. More public, not fully public maybe, but more public, and then keep on continuing building sensibilities from there. So living room might be a way to understand that as well. In living room, we don't have to always program something in order to accept guests, no? So, but we can also ask other people to host further even more people, or etc. etc. So the notion of non-program space is very important, I think. And then it can, like in this day and age, it turned out to be useful because under COVID, making it public is impossible, all those kind of stuff. But to host someone, to host not only subjects, but also non-human subjects can also be done. So yeah, it has been very, very fruitful and doable, let's say. If we don't have Ruru House and we have to prepare something like Documenta or Sonsbeck under COVID times, it's kind of like we cannot imagine how to do it, let's say. I'll stop there and then other can add.
Maybe I can add a bit because Farid just mentioned about the living room. I remember when the transition with ruangrupa from the first space like in the house, and then we moved to Gudang Sarina, the warehouse, and then we moved to Good School. What the experience to nongkrong itself also different. I mean, in the first ruangrupa space, like because it's kind of like the house, so it's quite homey, and actually we can do the nongkrong in everywhere, or sometimes in the library or in the front yard or in the living room itself or in the gallery and so on. And then in Gudang Sarina, it's become very spread because it's huge space, and we have a difficulties, but this is funny. So we have difficulties like, oh, then where we can do nongkrong or where di mana ya? So it's kind of like a very funny things to find space or find spot to do this hangout, for example. And then in Good School as well, I remember we discussed about when we already make a this area is for like public space, so people can come, and then in the second floor is more to people that working for daily in Good School. And then we also realized that but where's the area that we can do nongkrong? That's why we have this outdoor area in Good School as well for us to just nongkrong, and that's how the conversation start, and some of idea also come in that way. But it's also very or something that really how to say it, like natural thing sometimes as well. So yeah.
Can I just interfere for a moment? Can everybody mute their microphone who is not talking? Because I hear music. It's nice, but thank you.
Okay, I agree with Wapke that in a way it's still radical, although maybe the term doesn't mean so much, but like the way now with Documenta, the curating happens also to nongkrong, and especially this notion of time is sometimes quite contradictory to exhibition time, no? Which is all geared towards producing something huge. And I think ruangrupa is very, and we as an artistic team keep very much to nongkrong as this space of inclusion and really thinking things through and remaining human in the process. And this also links, I think, to the idea why you proposed Lumbung to Documenta, no? Coming from this experience of Good School, as Ajeng was already saying, ruangrupa has always transformed into different entities and needs, no? Like it started as a collective, it grew bigger, it was for a time producing a lot of festivals, then it became even bigger with the warehouse, facilitating many others, and then with Good School became more this educational platform, smaller again. So always very much in line with what is needed in the context, and with a thought of sustainability for the collective, but also for the ecosystem around the collective, I think. And that's also how you then proposed Lumbung to Documenta, no? And Lumbung is based on these values like that have been repeated many times: generosity, sharing, endurance, humor, and many more. But I think two values are very crucial for everything we do in Documenta 15 as well. And one is locally anchored, and the other one is regenerative. So putting a lot of emphasis on how to make a Documenta that is really locally anchored and non-extractive. No, often these bigger exhibitions, and especially in the last, I don't know, decade or decades, have become quite extractive to both economically and in terms of meaning to many artists that have been participating. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about how we take Lumbung as a practice for Documenta. So it's not so much as in many previous Documentas a theme for the exhibition or a concept. It's really a practice that is transferred from all this lived experience of ruangrupa to the big exhibition practice in Documenta 15 and building a longer term Lumbung, and how we try to make it really locally anchored and regenerative. I don't know who wants to start. Maybe we can talk about Kassel and Lumbung, Indonesia, how the artists have been invited in a regenerative way. I think all of you can talk about this.
Pariji, you want to start, or Kunil?
I think you should, Jeng, because it's Lumbung Indonesia as well.
I think it's not just for Lumbung Indonesia, but yeah, I can start. The idea or the concept of Lumbung, I think it's all, and how it's local anchor as one of the value is very yeah, most of the value is of course important, but locally anchor is when we mention about it, or when we put it as a value. It can be everywhere, right? When you say locally anchor or local anchor, it's something that's related to your where you, not just for geographic, but also maybe some issue or a problem that you want to resolve, for example. And then because in our practice at that moment, I mean, from the transformation of ruangrupa, from the collectives become collective of collectives, and then we start to run, or we start to develop and also practice it ourselves, the idea or this Lumbung as our approaches. We're thinking maybe this is something that kind of like in every maybe collectives in somewhere also have the same approaches or same value, for example. That's why we brought this as well to this in Documenta 15, and we invite, or we invite all these, we make this kind of like networking with the Lumbung Interlocal, and that's not just only that, we also build another networking with Lumbung kind of approaches, like for in the Kassel itself, and now in Lumbung Indonesia. But with Lumbung Indonesia, actually, it's also very long journey. It's not just happening only just like that. I mean, it's also start from around 2000, around 10 or 11 years ago, when we did, there's a initiative of a research initiative about the art collectives in Indonesia. And during that time, there's a research team and also a curator. It was, yeah, curator by, the curator is Ade Darmawan and also Rifki Goro. So they have this research project about art collectives, and they make an exhibition to invite around 21 collectives, art collectives in Indonesia. And then it's continue after 10 years, and in the initiative now yeah, good school take the initiative to continue the projects or the research. And since 2010, when the exhibition of well, the exhibition name is Fixer, one of the aims is also to make kind of like a new platform that can be sustained by themselves or during with each other. So yeah, I think maybe the rest can add. So that's just a bit from me.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit about locally anchored thing. The way we also kind of like think about using Documenta edition for our journey, it becomes like we're looking for practices that that function in their local context, and then it's important as well for their local context. Then we were thinking about a scheme that we can imagine Documenta 15 together with them. That's how the first 14 names that we announced for Documenta came about, or we call it Lumbung members. And then with them, we kind of like think, rethink, and also put into practicalities how can an exhibition or any event function for each of us, not only in Kassel, because Kassel is one of the locals, of course. It's a given for us. That's why Ruru House is there. That's why 2 of us from ruangrupa moved there almost 2 years ago. So there is an investment to understand Kassel as a context, but also with these 14 Lumbung members, each of them answers it differently as well. How can they use the opportunity of becoming a part of an edition of Documenta, at least to push their practice further, to push their relevance to their own context also further, and then how to grow not only as themselves, but also taking others with them. I think that's how we understand locally rooted, at least. Hopefully it's not too long, my addition.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so as you say, a lot bring a lot of others in, no? So we invited a lot of collectives, but always with an eye on their larger ecosystem. So there will be many presentations that invite other collectives and other artists in from their local ecosystem and use that opportunity also for their longer term program, both in terms of artistic or educational or economic. But yeah, coming back to the values of Lumbung, of sharing and generosity, we have also organized the whole process in groupings, as we call majlises. So all the artists are grouped in small assemblies, which we call mini majlises. And they share their projects, they share their knowledges, they share their problems, and they also have a collective pot of production money to actually develop collaborative projects together. We can talk more about that later, but yeah, I wanted to go also through these values of generosity and sharing, how this process of collectivity has kind of stimulated that. And maybe, Kunil, you can talk a little bit about Ruru Kids, which is an important part at the Fridericianum in Kassel, but it's a long-term program, of course, also in Good School already. And maybe about the collaboration with artists like Sura Patke that have been invited as an artist to Documenta, but how actually they transformed their collaboration in Documenta to something that becomes generative for the whole Ruru Kids and wider audience.
Yes, Ruru Kids is one of the platform in ruangrupa. Whenever Ruru Kids actually ruangrupa for kids. So because when we talk about the regenerative, it's also we put interdiscipline, generation, that we can share the knowledge. So that's we think that it's also important, because like Ruru Kids motto is kids are important, they are our future, and then this is a big opportunity for us in Documenta to sharing the knowledge from the artists all around the world about their artistic approach, and then how they pass the knowledge to the children's, and then in a innovative way, in a fun way, so the children can be important. And in Documenta, Ruru Kids collaborate in infrastructure with Surapatke. He is an artist background, arsitek ya, Rit. His background is architect, and then what interesting is he is ini Rit, sorry I need to translate. Rit membangun ininya loh, dari lokal anchornya tuh kerja bareng sama kerja bareng di kotanya waktu di India untuk bikin program-program dan sekolah gitu.
I'll try to translate. So Surap came originally from India, although he's based in London right now. Back in India, because of the architecture background he has, his practice has never been big, but because of it's consequential also, because the way he works is with the community that he's working with anyway. So it's never been scalable, let's say. And then it includes children as well,
and mothers,
and mothers. And that's why, like, the product usually not building per se, no, but like how, like methods how to build, I don't know, toilet with poo or something like that. Please continue, Neil.
Thank you, Farid. Yeah, it's not only we'll work with Surap, and there's also with others artists and the artists based in Kassel to work together with the Ruru Kids in Documenta 15.
So I think it's a nice example of how also by forming these majlises and this collectivity in Documenta, we also try to get away from how this exhibition doesn't become like a competitive space, but actually something regenerative. And the example of Surap, that has been invited as an artist and to work on his work and his ecosystem, immediately turned into something that became useful for Ruru Kids and the other artists in Documenta. And there are many other examples, I think, of this. So coming back a little bit to this notion of sustainability, which is, I think, the underlying aim for ruangrupa to propose Lumbung to Documenta, no? Like having friends all over the world, working in collectives with different struggles, and always the struggle for survival. Also Documenta is used a lot for economic experimentation and how to become more independent of kind of funding practices, as Ajeng was saying before, or even governments or commercial practice. So maybe it's also nice to talk a little bit about the economic experimentations that are happening. Ajeng, you want to talk maybe about the kiosk. There are several projects that came from all these assemblies that we were having. People have been building relations and trust and have been thinking about how to use Documenta as this regenerative platform, artistically, educationally, and economically. So now there are several collective projects that we are working on, a Lumbung gallery, a currency, but also a kiosk, for example. And Ajeng is running the kiosk project with many others. You want to talk a bit more about it?
Yes, sure. So yeah, as Gertrude mentioned before, so like in this conversation on the economy, where we have many projects, or one of it is kiosk, or we call it Lumbung kiosk. So the idea to build this Lumbung kiosk as how to say it, like sustained collective model experiments that we want to try with Lumbung members or artists and their ecosystem or local ecosystem through selling the merchandise, or because most of them are mostly they have products or merchandise that sellable, and that's how we were thinking to also have this to generate income from this selling merchandise, or to trade these products through each locals in the long-term way. And we're thinking as well, because when we talk about the sustainability, it's not just about the economics, but also about the environment. And we also discuss about the alternative way to distribute our merchandise or our products. For example, at this moment, we are very interested to learn and to practice this kind of like feral trade mode. This one, these models established by artist named Gertrude. I think she is from UK, but now the last time I think she's based in Australia. So yeah, we still learn about this model or system, but with this Lumbung kiosk, so it's very interesting because it's also one of the value that we have is independent. So not just to, because maybe one of the aim is to be interdependent, but for that we need to independent first, and then we try to generate our income through this selling merchandise. And we're also thinking how the mechanism and how to share it. We're practice it with have kind of like percentages, for example, that we will put in our collective pot, and later soon through Majlis we can discuss like how to use this our collective pot that collect from this selling of the merchandise. That's the idea so far with Lumbung kiosk. So the for right now we're plan to have the physical kiosk through the 100 days, but also we have kind of like the important one, the kiosk for the long term or beyond. This is how we want to utilize our digital space as well. Yeah, we have this lumbung.space, kind of like a digital database, and also kind of we also have our like social media that we built through this process of Documenta 15. And yeah, so far this is the progress that we have, or the conversation that we have in Lumbung kiosk and other working group in Documenta 15.
Yeah, so the aim of all these projects is kind of to use the opportunity of Documenta 15 to build, like, to liberate also means, knowledge, again, artistic, but also money to then build a collective pot on which we can build a longer term lumbung. No, there are some questions in the chat about this as well. So maybe Liesbeth, you want to read them out?
Yeah, there's a question from Nancy Jouwe to everyone. Could you speak on the notion of importance of friendship in connection to how you work? And then I was also thinking in sort of continuing thinking from that question from Nancy, to expand perhaps the question of friendship to economy and sustainability too, how friendship and economy are related. I think there's no economic transaction without a relation, without love perhaps, or without friendship in any form. So in this way, sustainability is perhaps also part of the process of friendship. Trust. You talked about the pot where economic means, money, is collected and allocated and divided. I think, so that's, I think that's, to me, it seems that friendship and sustainability and economic means and trust obviously are so much interrelated. And I'm also wondering, wow, how is this playing out in such a huge exhibition like Documenta? No? So that is like, how do you scale up the senses of friendship towards something that is like big and with huge expectations as well?
I think my view, it's the answer is super important because the value of lumbung, like generosity and then humor, some things like that, it's a basic, is a elements, parts of the basic things of a friendship. Friendship in really have a related with trust. Like in good school, for instance, we not only nongkrong, right? So we do majelis in every month, and then we open our money condition, for instance. So we know when our friends in our ecosystem, it's they need help for another friends in that space. So how can you speak openly when you're not really close with them? So the relationship, like the friendship, it's a glue for us, specifically in ruangrupa, in good school ecosystem. So the lumbung interaction, when they applied in Jakarta, in Indonesia, it's easier than when we bring this lumbung values in the world, to the world, because working with hundreds people with diverse of culture, it's and also when we not meet together like offline things, we very effort to make the trust. So the experiments in the what we experiments like in Documenta 15, I think it's extended also what we do in lumbung consciously and subconsciously in Ruru and in good school. So when we do programs in Documenta 15, we always bringing how we can interaction offline, why we can interaction not like you buy and you sell your stuffs, but when you bring your stuff, I talk to you, I chit chat with you. It's not about only transaction things. So we have a trust, and then we want to we have a loyalty to all of our friends in the ecosystem.
Can I ask a few more questions from the chat, Gertrude? Yeah. Sharon Stewart from Artes wanted to expand again on the question of friendship, if that can also extend to the notion of friendship to the non-human, becoming friends with place and materials. And Arno asked, and that's maybe slightly off topic, but I don't think so actually. He very much sympathizes with the metaphor of a journey And why do you think Documenta is eager to embark on your journey? So it's two questions. One of the material and other species, plants, materials, other inhabitants of this planet. And the other one is why Documenta is eager to work with you and to embark on this process, this journey. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Is it okay, Jung, Bi, Neil, if I start? Journey part, maybe it's easier as an entry point to start answering this. When we talk about sustain, I think what Erbi said as well before and others, what we sustain is the relationships is far more important. So a lot of times this is coming back to nongkrong as well. Like we like to sustain our relationships and working together with people that we enjoy hanging out with, let's say, you know. So it's kind of like why we work with Gertrude up until now is because we enjoy hanging out with her up until now as well, you know. It's as simple as that. Like we sometimes that time, the enjoyment of time spent together is much more important for us, or as important for us as the quality of work. You know, like if it's about artists and then the work that they produce, all those kind of stuff. We work with artists that their work are amazing, but they're not fun to hang out with, you know. Then we rethink a lot of times. We talk between each other, all those kind of stuff on how to improve the relationship we have with them, for example, or what can we make that they can actually also enjoy hanging out with us, and all those kind of stuff. Therefore, I think like financial matters, although it is important, and then it is one of the most important work that we're doing for the journey as well, that we won't be, because learning from Soundsback before, we were kind of like, we forgot our sustained local responsibilities, let's say, when we were doing Soundsback. That's why we didn't want to do the same with Documenta. In order for that, like we chose the people we're working with in the hope, like with the old friends, it's kind of like clear, maybe like, you know, we should be able to hang out with them for 3 years constantly, something like that during the making. But then new friends as well, what type of new friends we can learn from, then hopefully we can keep on continuing working with them after Documenta 15. And then economy is not the only thing we are interested about, you know, like money is important, but then it's not the only thing. Actually, economic sustainability can be achieved if this is learning from Indonesian culture, I think, very much, that it's fine not to have money as long as you can have friends still, you know, because your friends can save you. And then we have so many friends in good school that actually exist by that modes of operation. And then when we talk about ecosystem, of course, some of, like, you know, if we talk in economical sense, maybe we can understand them as parasite, but in an ecosystem, parasites are actually also needed, you know. It's only about the balance, how many parasites are there. Sorry for my lighting. I just realized it, but I'll stop there.
Maybe a bit more on why Documenta would be interested in this journey. This was a question as well, right? Maybe I start a bit and then you extend on it. because I think Documenta realized, of course, when this selection was made, that it's actually the time for the questions that ruangrupa is asking, as Liesbeth was also saying, I think, in her introduction. No? And this is very different than when I started to work 20 years ago with ruangrupa. I remember when I would bring friends from the Netherlands or France or Germany, they would not see any value in it. But I think there is a bigger realization that there is a value in it. But then coming back to that, Documenta is treated, or Lumbung is treated not as a theme, but as a practice. I think then also it became a journey with Documenta, no? Like realizing, okay, it's not just a theme that we need to rethink our social relationships, that we need to think power hierarchies, but it's actually a practice. So then the institution also started to realize, if you see how a Documenta is built, the whole bureaucracy of it, the whole way the organization is structured, it's not geared towards Lumbung. So it's also a journey or a relation with ups and downs, I would say. Maybe others want to continue on this.
Maybe just a little bit, the ups and downs, it's part of the work, and then it is actually artistic work for us. It has been our artistic practice as well. And then that's the name of the game as well. That's why we were interested as well to embark this journey with Documenta. It's a negotiation from different sensibilities, approach, habits, etc. And then hopefully it is enjoyable in the end. And then the 100 days of Documenta, the museum of 100 days, known before, for us it's 100 days of celebration, public celebration of a process. Then it's a time of like harvesting, you know, and we celebrate the harvest together finally with the bigger public for 100 days. Hopefully it will be kind of like enticing, hopeful and positive as well. After, like, you know, this was like what Gertrude and also you, Liesbeth, said before. We didn't prepare it for pandemic times, but it happened that it was in pandemic times. But then on a positive note, it rings louder as well, this type of changes during hard times like this. Like winter came early for us, but everyone agrees that something needs to change anyway.
Thank you. I think we need to round off. Is that right, Liesbeth?
Well, but I would like to, you know, I could continue for the next 6 hours, but I'm sure that we will end up with 5 of us or something, which is great too. But there's on the dot, there's some remarks and questions coming in that I would like to share, whether they're answerable or not. It's a question, or maybe not a question, from Jake, not a question, he says, but comment to Farid regarding friends over money. We have a saying in Russian, which is don't have 100 rubles, just have 100 friends. It's super nice to hear that in Indonesia and ruangrupa this is similar. Thank you for all the conversations and hope to see you in Kassel. Well, that's good, that's nice. Then there is another one from Valeria Gertsen. She says, it is the time. We work as volunteers for the transformation, though, and this is a luxury. One has to be in the position to do this. This is about time and privilege and having the time to actually invest in this, which is sometimes a choice and sometimes cannot be a choice, I would say. And then there was Tamara Ko, who wanted to have some personal highlights in working like this from what you have built up so far. And I think that would be really like a huge question, no? Because when I'm searching on, when I'm exploring the websites of Documenta, this Documenta, and also the history of ruangrupa towards this point in time, which is all very super informative. There's many examples, I think, that could speak to everything that has been talked about. No, Lumbung, Nongkrong, friendship, economy, sharing, improvisation, risk. I don't know. You know, it's so. I would also suggest that everybody who wants to know more also goes to the very, very nicely built up websites with YouTube films and performances and so on and so forth. Very nice, very good as well to come prepared, I think, to Kassel. That's, I don't know, did we come to the end, or are there some closing remarks from ruangrupa?
Maybe on time and personal highlights. This, I would say, is a personal highlight for me, working with ruangrupa. Like, of course, we need privilege to work with this time, but this is something I really keep learning from ruangrupa, no? That there is time and there is failure in this process, and also even the journey in Documenta is just one step over time, no? All these transformations that ruangrupa has been going through, and Documenta is one more step. And because of COVID, we haven't maybe come as far as we wanted, but there will be a next iteration in some form. But yeah, let me not have the last word. Erby, you want to close?
I think I'm super happy to see very close what how Ruru responds for the many challenges in when the Documenta 15 journey. I think they have ruangrupa have many challenges in the real 21st years old, but they enjoy the challenge, and then they respond. It's very nice, and I see very close because I assist them. So it's really valuable moments for me to working with them and in Documenta 15.
I would say 21 years. Wow, that's beyond puberty, no? Really. Yeah, I would like to.
Legal drinking age.
Sorry?
Legal drinking age in many countries.
True. Yeah. Okay. I think we have come to a nice ending of this. And I'm very happy that we could welcome you, Ajung, Farid, Erby, and Daniela, and that you hosted this whole thing, Gertrude, and that you all managed to stay on board. We started with 120. I think there's 91 still. I can't see all your faces, but I think it's great. And I think we have something to look forward to. Exciting and curious. Thank you.
Thank you for the honor of being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you in Kassel, hopefully.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kassel.
Bye-bye.